Harry revealed that he suggested to the king, to his father once, that he'd give up his and Meghan's titles anyway if they weren't able to live in Canada and still perform some royal duties. But that obviously didn't work out for them.
All right, well, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me as always. So this is some big news that I know that you're talking about. So there is a law in motion now, right, allowing the Sussex's status to be downgraded. So tell us all about this and what this means.
Bob Seely MP told me that he's pressing ahead with his attempt to pass legislation that would allow Harry and Meghan to be downgraded as royals. He's planning what's called a private members bill, which would allow a vote on taking away their titles. Now, private members bills can be introduced by elected members of parliament and also by members of the House of Lords who aren't government ministers. Speaking to me directly, Bob Seely revealed that the bill won't be presented until the middle of February because it needs to be written. But he said that it's aimed at dealing with what he called bad royals to give support to the monarchy. And I asked him why he's doing this. He's clear that he thinks Harry and Meghan are embarrassing themselves, and he called the situation a bit sad. He's clear that this is in no way designed to embarrass the king or the royal family on his part. On the contrary, he said that this is about supporting a constitutional monarchy which has been brought into disrepute. He said that if Harry has any self-respect, he should renounce his title himself. And he told me that the monarchy is meant to be dignified, describing it as the dignified bit of our constitution. Now, I think that's a really interesting point because the monarchy here isn't just a soap opera. It's not just a celebrity, unfolding celebrity story. It's a fundamental part of the British Constitution. And while it isn't elected or modern in terms of how it works, it does serve an important role, largely because it's dignified and calm, traditional, and it's just got that way of operating. And when that's interrupted by forces either from outside or inside the family, it's quite a serious challenge. Now, Parliament, where Bob Seely works, can get heated and messy, but royalty's meant to be a sort of touchstone of calm dignity and history and tradition. And that reflects something about Britain to the nation and the world. And I think that we really saw that actually at work recently when the Queen died. So his bill aims to amend an existing law, which is called the 1917 Titles Deprivation Act. And that was used to strip German royal family of their UK titles during the First World War. What he's proposing is that the Privy Council would have the power to strip the Duke and Duchess of their titles if the bill were passed. So Bob Seely says he's going ahead with his plan, unless, of course, Harry and Meghan choose to act preemptively and make it unnecessary. Because when we spoke, he told me that if Harry hates it all so much, he should do us a favour and renounce his titles, and we can call them Mr. and Mrs. Windsor or whatever they want to be called.
Do we know if he has support from other members of the parliament and if he really feels like this is going to get passed?
Well, the government said it isn't actually backing this bill, and only a minority of private members' bills actually become law because they aren't part of the legislative agenda of the government. But they do generate a lot of publicity, and this one's no exception. And I think that in this case, the proposal's very much in tune with mainstream public opinion, so perhaps it'll be a bit different. Of course, Harry revealed that he suggested to the king, to his father once, that he'd give up his and Meghan's titles anyway if they weren't able to live in Canada and still perform some royal duties. But that obviously didn't work out for them. Right. And since then, he's backtracked on that offer. I mean, the couple still use their titles, especially in commercial activities through which they make millions of dollars. But when he was asked recently if he'd voluntarily give up the titles, he just snapped back and said, what difference would that make?
Right. I mean, why do you think that the royal family hasn't renounced these titles yet? And do you think that that's something that they'll consider doing, especially if this gets a lot of publicity and a lot of people support them not having these titles anymore?
Well, I think the sense that I get is that this is not something they want to do. I think in this war between Harry and Meghan and the rest of the royal family, I think they're trying to calm things, not trying to throw more grenades in, not trying to provoke any more than they're being provoked. So I think that trying to remove their titles by the king would be seen as perhaps an aggressive move, or at least Harry and Meghan could dress it up that way. I mean, we might have Spare 2 or Netflix volumes, 7 to 12. And I think perhaps they're trying to spare us all of that misery as well. In all honesty, I think it's just not necessarily on their agenda. They want to get on with doing the job of the royal family and try and avoid that. And I think that's why people like Bob Seely are interested in trying to do what they can to support the family. I don't know if it's supported by the royal family, but that is how I think he would see it, is that he's trying to do something so that that decision can be made, can be removed from the king himself, but it could be an indication of dissatisfaction in a wider way.
Sure. Yeah. No, you make a good point that the royal family probably won't take any action because it would look like that's their form of retaliation, and that's not what they want. But, did he give a timeline? Like you said, this could happen in February. Does he have a timeline of when he thinks that this could pass or not pass? Did he give you a timeline for that?
Well, there's a schedule really for how these things can be heard, because obviously it requires parliamentary time and it's quite technical. Depends which kind of private member's bill it is, and there's a rule about readings on Fridays. I think there are 13 Fridays within a parliamentary term that can be used for them. There are other opportunities as well. So in a sense, it depends on how quickly it is drafted. And Bob Seeley told me that would most likely be mid-February. That would be around when the actual text would be ready. And so I think then we'll have more of an indication of exactly how it will work if it's pushed forward from that point.
For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.